I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes telling you how good this gun is, and it is incredibly good, and then tell you not to buy it. Both those things are true. This is the Bul Armory Tac Comp. So that is an incredibly weird way to start a video where the manufacturer has sent in a gun, and they did on this particular pistol. That is your disclosure and your encouragement to kind of look at all videos on YouTube with a skeptical eye and take the good information and kind of come up with your own decisions. But we're going to talk about the new features on this gun in 2026 because Bul Armory is making the best pistols they've ever made. We'll look at how Bul Armory pistols aren't exactly 2011s. We call them 2011s, but they're not really. We'll look at them in slow motion against the Tac Pros, the Staccato XC, and a proper full tilt race gun. And then we will finish with why this gun is incredible, but it's probably not for everybody. So jumping right in, the Bul Armory optic mounting system, in my opinion, is one of the best, if not the best, mounting systems on all 2011 pistols. And the reason for that is the optics are directly mounted into the slide using a spacer plate. There is a little mound in the center of the optic cut, and then a spacer plate kind of fits around it. The screws pass through the plate into the slide so you can torque down the optic more, but more importantly, it lowers that window of the optic down closer to the slide, which most 2011 style guns, the optics ride significantly higher. This gets it pretty low. You pay for that in the form of these little tic tacs you have on either side of the slide where the RMR screws are accepted into the slide, which means Bul's using a wider piece of bar stock to get the guns to direct mount the optics. And as I said, I do think it's the best optic mount system going. Also new for 2026 is the new Link trigger system. The old Bul Armory guns have a swappable trigger shoe that allows you to swap the trigger shoe without removing the trigger from the grip. This new Link system made that even easier, like a lot easier. It takes less than a minute on my first try to swap out a trigger shoe. It is fantastic. And there's a ton of trigger shoes to choose from. I think there's like 12. What I have on this gun in particular is the wide flat trigger at the medium length. So previously you could only tune for the length of pull on the triggers. Now they even have the width that you can get a width that you like. This is a wider trigger, which I really like. Now consider on a regular 2011, swapping a trigger requires removing the grip from the gun, which is basically taking it all the way apart and then putting it back in, putting it back together. It's a 20 to 30 minute job if you're good at it versus less than a minute, your first try. That's a major quality of life upgrade. The next thing this gun offers is shielded safeties. So you see these little verticals right here on the safety. That is a shield to keep your thumb off the slide. And that's because when you have an aggressive porting scheme, I guess I should talk about that. Like the whole point of the gun is it's got V6 ports and a compensator. So when you have V6 ports and a compensator, there's a lot less gas exiting the muzzle, which means that there's not as much energy moving the slide to the rear, which means that using the lighter spring to get the guns to cycle, if your thumb is making superficial contact with the slide, which happens on 1911 style pistols, like if you look at my competition guns, there's a load of dead skin in the rear serrations. But the shield keeps your thumb off the slide so you're not going to choke the gun with your thumb. The Bul Armory grips, as I've said in past videos, are some of the more friendly guns for small-handed shooters in the double stack space. They made that even more friendly with the addition of this new mag button. My fellow big hand bros, yes, it doesn't get in the way at all. I can't even feel it on my support hand. I didn't drop any mags in recoil, so it's implemented incredibly well, but it allows you to get onto that mag button a lot easier. So our tiny-handed brethren can rejoice in the double stack pistol that will accommodate them somewhat. The fit and finish on the gun is very good for a production gun, meaning that it comes off the machine and it is assembled without like heavy hand fitting, locking in the tolerances and stuff like that. There is a little bit of wobble on slide and frame if you listen. You can hear it, but the barrel is fit incredibly well. There's zero muzzle deflection. It just is fit very well. And the trigger out of the box is awesome. There is almost no pre-travel and almost no over-travel, just like you would want. And the trigger weight on mine is about 37 ounces. Shooting the gun is ridiculous. It's a lot of fun. Shooting the gun indoors is incredibly loud and you're going to deafen yourself unless you double plug. It is the loudest 9mm I've ever shot. And if you think about it, there is not one, not two, but 7 different holes that is causing the noise of the gun going off to kind of come up. And if you're in an indoor range, they've got that like steel deflector thing above your head and you've got the partitions on either side. So it's just a lot of noise reflection back at the shooter. I would highly encourage you to double plug if you're shooting these bad boys at indoor ranges. Tough guys are gonna say, yeah, but all guns are loud. And they're right, all guns are loud, but this It just brings a lot of noise back to the shooter. But I forgive it because the gun makes up for it, because it is silly flat shooting. It is one of the, if not the flattest 9mm minor guns I have ever shot. You do have to unlearn how you return a gun from recoil. And what I mean by that is everybody is kind of putting some like forward pressure onto the gun. So when the gun lifts out of recoil, it's going to drop back down to the point of aim. That's called timing. You have to kind of get in time with the gun. And this gun's timing is just a little bit different. It takes a lot less effort to return the gun to recoil to get it to hit where you looked at. What I found works is if you just stiffen up your wrist, especially putting more pressure at the bottom of the grip rather than kind of at the top to kind of cause it to rotate down. Putting grip pressure at the bottom from your support hand tends to get it to come back to where you were looking at for that first shot. It took about 100 rounds for me to figure out the timing on the gun and get it to be able to stack shots, but once I had that, it was super easy. Like, you basically just form a frame with your upper body to absorb the recoil, and then you just kind of tap that beautiful 37-ounce trigger and good things happen. And the accuracy out of the gun, despite having 7 extra bonus holes poked into the barrel, is excellent. I zeroed the gun with Fiocchi range dynamics and I put it on a rest and shot it at 25 yards using some reloaded jacketed hollow points that I used to use for competition. And the group is about as good as my eyes are capable of delivering. That is excellent. Obviously, there was a point of impact shift from the ammo I zeroed with and the ammo that I was shooting groups with, but even still, just look at the group, don't look where it's hitting. And for the real neckbeard stuff, I did shoot this gun with a bunch of different ammo, and what I found is that the porting scheme reduces the velocity about 5 to 7%. Hotter stuff like Winchester White Box greatly benefits from the ports being there, and stuff with faster powder like the Buffalo Creek 124. Shout out to Buffalo Creek. They are a supporter of the channel, keep the guns fed. Neither one of those guns had significant velocity loss, so if you were an IDPA bro, look at White Box or Buffalo Creek 124. So all of that to say, I think that this is one of the best guns that Bul Armory has ever made, and my opinion of the gun is super high. But it is not a real 2011, and I'll tell you this because I get emails about this and people ask me in the comments and stuff like that, so I'm just putting this out here so this information is available to you. So 2 things are different about Bul Armory pistols and real 2011s is that how the grip mounts to the frame is different from other guns, which means it doesn't accept regular 2011 grips unless you modify them. And as a result, it doesn't accept regular 2011 magazines unless, again, you've modified the grip to accept them. The magazines Bul Armory uses are kind of like para-style magazines. They're apparently interchangeable. I don't have any old paras, so I don't have para mags to try them with. But they've got little blockier shoulders, and the mag catch cutout is just a little bit different from what all the rest of the 2011s are doing, which means that if you're happy to pick up the Bul Armory guns and run them out of the box as they come, you're in luck because they're fantastic pistols, but at the same time, you won't be able to customize them and make them your own to an extent because you're kind of locked in on the grips. And just throwing in a couple negatives, the 20-round magazines it comes with, and it comes with 4 of them, by the way, which is a phenomenal value, are like 55 to 75 bucks depending on which configuration of the magazine that you get. 2011 mags have gone through kind of a renaissance, and their stuff as cheap as like 45 bucks for regular 2011s, but you have to use the Bul Armory ones. When the mags are loaded full, they can rattle. And that depends on how the bullets are stacked up in the magazine. If you kind of tap them to the front, they don't rattle as much, but you hear that one kind of coming around. That can be an issue when you're carrying the gun. You can get mag rattle, so you just have to make sure that the mags are loaded just so you don't get it. And that's not that big a deal, but one thing that does kind of stink about these magazines is the base pads are incredibly difficult to remove to clean. So what that means, if you're at the range training, outdoor range, and you drop it and it lands kind of, follower down in the dirt or gravel or sand, it's difficult to get the base pad off to clean out the mag tube so the follower doesn't bind. If you're picking up some training mags, the polymer ones are easy to remove the base pads on, but also MBX makes magazines for the Bul Armory pistols. They don't rattle and they've got easier to take off base pads. Problem with that is MBX mags are wildly expensive. They're like 2x the cost almost as the regular mags. But those are 2 things you might want to know about. I love the way the 4-inch guns shoot. This is a stroked commander action on the Tac Pro 4 1/4. Super, super nice shooting. And plus it looks really good. The 5-inch Tac Pro is kind of a classic. This spent a lot of time as my IDPA carry optics gun. Great gun, big fan. The XC, a lot of the 2011 snobs will say is old hat. I still think it's one of the best shooting guns. Again, it's got that sweet combination of a commander slide with a government stroke length,
so it shoots super nice, but it just has the compensator and no ports. So what happens when we take the long stroke of the government with the commander slide, get V6 porting and the compensator? I don't know how that's gonna come across in slow motion, but I can tell you from behind the gun, it has less dip on the close that you get with the 5-inch Tac Pro. It has the fast, long, gentle cycling. It benefits from the barrel weight of the compensator and the fact that the gas scheme dumbs down the recoil. It feels like, I don't know if slow motion is going to show, but it feels like it's lifting and dipping less. It just feels super serene.
So in slow motion, you can see that the Tac Pro 4 1/4 has significantly more dip on close, meaning that when you're shooting at the limit of speed, the Tac Comp is going to hold a tighter pattern. Same thing to a lesser extent on the 5-inch version of the Tac Pro. There's just a little bit more wobble as the gun continues to recoil. Swapping over to the XC initially on kind of the first 2 shots when the grip is strong, there's not a ton of difference between them, but as you continue to shoot the guns and the gun defeats your grip a little bit, you see that the Tac Comp is a little bit more serene.
And that's because it's got the DNA of a race gun, which is the Bul Armory Spitfire here. Let's just see what happens with the same ammo out of a 50-something ounce race gun. This gun's even more bonkers than the Tac Comp, but you'd expect it to be since it's a full tilt racer. But now we at least have that slow motion to look at.
So the Spitfire, which is a full tilt open gun for USPSA and IPSC competition, it just recoils less. The gas scheme is more aggressive and optimized for a competition gun. And if you look at the slide, there's an optic cutout at the rear, but no optic there, so the slide is significantly lighter weight. It uses a lighter recoil spring, and the gun's frame is heavier, so it just recoils less than the Tac Comp, but the Tac Comp gives it a good run for its money. So bottom line, the Tac Comp is about as serious as you can get for a 9-miner gun without getting into full tilt race gun territory. Which brings us into why I wouldn't recommend this pistol to most of the people who are watching this video. Now, that takes some explaining. Let me get there. If you've got a safe full of double stack pistols, this gun's awesome. You're gonna love it. Scoop one up. You won't regret it at all. If you've already got a 2011 pistol and you know what this is doing, you know what it means for competition, how loud they are, etc., they're fantastic pistols given that. If you don't have any 2011 pistols, I would say that this is not a good first 2011 pistol, and that's gonna be any ported or comped 2011 pistol, not just this one, but let's talk about it. First is the noise. I wasn't kidding when I said this is the loudest 9mm gun I've ever shot. Like, my ears were ringing leaving the indoor range when I first shot the gun and got it zeroed. I didn't double plug, and I'm telling you, you should. And that's a problem for the first time 2011 guy, because what happens when you get your first 2011, and I was no different when I got my first one, and it was a Bul Armory Tac 4 1/4, actually. If you're gonna fall in love with the pistol, and you're gonna wanna use it for everything, you're gonna wanna carry it, you're gonna wanna use it for home defense, you're gonna wanna use it in competition, and this gun is so niche with the ports and comps that it's not super well suited for a lot of that. I mean, you can carry it, but it's a big gun with a 5-inch profile on the slide. It's not going to be for everybody because that's a big gun. It's going to be super loud in enclosed spaces, as we have discussed. And if you're using it in a defensive type shooting in a house or a car per se, I mean, your hearing's already screwed, but it's going to be extra screwed just because of how loud the gun is, because of all the extra holes make the sound kind of come back to the shooter. Whereas, you know, a typical gun, all the sound is going away from the shooter. With the ports and comps, it's a different animal. The next one is going to be ammo. The ammo makes this gun a little bit trickier to run. You saw that the velocity loss is a thing. You have to consider it for some applications, but you can't shoot plated or synthetic jacketed bullets out of a gun like this with ports. What ends up happening is you'll shear pieces of the jacketing on the ports, and it will eventually like foul the barrel and cause accuracy issues. It'll throw, in the case of the synthetic jackets, it'll throw just a bunch of crap all over the pistol that is difficult to kind of clean off. And so a lot of your cheaper ammo selections aren't going to be suitable out of a ported pistol. So you're locked in with full metal jacket or jacketed hollow points, both of which are a little bit more spendy than kind of some of the cheaper ammo available. The trigger is a master's trigger, meaning that you have developed sufficient sensitivity in your trigger finger to deal with almost no take up and then almost no effort to make the trigger go off. It's not like clicking a mouse, but it's kind of like clicking a mouse. It is incredibly common for people to show up with their first single action only gun at pistol matches and then inadvertently send rounds downrange because they didn't think the pistol was going to go off quite so soon. For somebody who hasn't developed that skill set, this is something just to be careful about on any single action only pistol, but especially this one. The next is competition fit. This gun is basically the final boss of IDPA carry optics guns. It is super suitable for PCSL competition or defensive competition divisions. PCSL is awesome, especially defensive competition. I wish match directors across the country would do more of those matches. And it would be fine in Steel Challenge in open division, but where it doesn't really fit is into USPSA. I showed you the Spitfire. That is what's considered an open gun, and that is what this gun would be competing against with a scoring disadvantage. And USPSA is the most common match in the United States. It's the largest practical shooting sport there is. So this gun will be a lot of fun at USPSA as an open gun, especially getting a big stick and shooting it. It'll be awesome. But at some level, you're not going to be as competitive as the dudes with full tilt race guns. And if you've never had a ported or comped gun before, they have a lot more heat that they deal with because there's hot gas kind of coming up mid-slide. So what ends up happening is it feels like the guns run out of their oil a lot faster. So you need to keep slide speed up to keep the guns running. So it is going to require a little bit more cleaning and a lot more oiling to make sure that the guns are going to run like they're supposed to. So my recommendation, if this is your first 2011 that you're kind of drooling over, is not get one of these. But if you want to keep it in the Bul family with this on the roadmap eventually, start with something like a Tac 4 1/4 or 5-inch gun. Those are excellent guns. You can do a lot more if you want it to be a multi-role pistol. It's very versatile and can do it. And you can build up to something like this because this thing is truly like the final boss of 9 minor pistols. All that said, I love this gun. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It is silly fun to shoot. It's fun to have a gun that just kind of naturally snaps back to where it lifted off from once you adjust your grip and get used to it.
This thing is sick, dude.
The gun is super fast, super flat. It's just a lot of fun. It's a bullet hose, man. It's the best. And Bul Armory is making the highest quality guns. They've continued to refine their design. It's always been very good, but these are the best they've ever been with the modular trigger, the optic system, the mag button now, the revised magwell. Everything about the gun has it's improved, it feels like, year over year. I think the link trigger system is a serious step forward. I would love to see more companies do the link and the optic system cut on their pistols. Is it a massive leap up over the Tac Pro 5-inch? I mean, it is a noticeable step forward, but it's not going to be something that is like immediately exploitable, and you won't be able to do a lot with this that you can't do with that gun. It's a super fun gun to shoot. Having that commander slide with a government stroke length, this is a 5-inch stroke as far as the rearward travel is concerned. It's just incredibly nice to shoot. And up until this gun, the cheapest ported and compensated gun you could get was about $6 grand. It was the Jacob Gray Nox 9. And now there's the Atlas Gunworks Hades, which sells for about $10,000 and has a similar scheme to this. I'm willing to bet that neither one of those guns shoot meaningfully different from this gun. I think that this gun is a heck of a value considering that they're charging just under $3 grand for it. So it's an expensive pistol, but it's not like 2 or 3x like those other guns. If you're earlier in your journey and you want to check out the Bul Armory Tac, it was my first double stack 2011, you can check out the video here. Or if you want to see my review of the Tac Pro 5-inch, you can see that here as well. If you got value out of the video, consider subscribing, and I'll catch you on the next one.